Money laundering is one of the most elusive and dangerous financial crimes in the world. A clandestine operation in which billions of dollars of dirty money are funneled through the global financial system, washed clean, and reintroduced into the economy as legitimate wealth. The intricacies of these operations are often hidden behind a facade of legality, using complex corporate structures that appear innocent but, in reality, are nothing more than sophisticated criminal tools. One of the most effective methods for laundering money is through shell companies, business entities that exist only on paper. They serve no real purpose other than to obfuscate the origins of illicit funds, and provide a shield for criminals to move their ill-gotten wealth across borders, hidden from the prying eyes of regulators and law enforcement agencies. The world of shell companies is shadowy, filled with hidden transactions and faceless corporations operating in the most secretive corners of the globe. And as the digital age accelerates, these money laundering operations have only grown more complex, leaving behind a trail of corruption that impacts everything from global financial markets to real estate prices. This journey through the world of money laundering and shell companies will uncover how these entities operate, the devastating effects they have on economies, and why we must bring them into the light before it's too late. At its core, money laundering is the process of making large amounts of money generated by illegal activities, such as drug trafficking, fraud, or corruption, appear to come from legitimate sources. The challenge for criminals lies in concealing the origins of their dirty money, so that they can use it without arousing suspicion. This process generally happens in three stages: placement, layering, and integration. During placement, illegal funds are injected into the financial system, often in cash, where they can be deposited into bank accounts or converted into assets like real estate. The layering stage is where the magic happens. Money is moved through multiple transactions, often across borders, to disguise its origin. Shell companies play a crucial role at this stage. Finally, in the integration stage, the laundered money is reintegrated into the legitimate economy, where it can be used freely, often in high-value purchases like luxury goods, investments, or legitimate businesses. But what are shell companies? These entities are legal but hollow corporations that have no employees, physical offices, or operations. They exist purely on paper, often registered in tax havens with little regulation or oversight. While shell companies can serve legitimate business purposes, they are often used as vehicles for criminal enterprises to launder money, evade taxes, and hide assets. These companies provide anonymity, allowing their true owners to remain hidden, while they move money through multiple layers of transactions. Because shell companies can be registered with minimal paperwork and oversight, particularly in jurisdictions like the British Virgin Islands, Panama, or even Delaware in the United States, they are an ideal tool for those seeking to obscure their financial activities. A fascinating example of this came to light in the Panama Papers leak, which exposed how a network of 214,000 shell companies was used by the world's elites to hide their wealth, avoid taxes, and in some cases, launder money. The documents, leaked from the Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca, showed how individuals and corporations exploited the anonymity provided by shell companies to move vast sums of money across the globe, often with little accountability. Shell companies are central to money laundering because of how they operate. A shell company is typically registered in an offshore jurisdiction with lax regulatory standards, and its ownership is deliberately obscured. The first step for a money launderer is to create or purchase such a company, giving them a seemingly legitimate entity through which to funnel their illegal funds. Once the shell company is established, the launderer can inject illicit money into the company's accounts, disguising it as income from legitimate business activities such as consulting fees, loans, or trade invoices. To further distance the money from its criminal origins, the shell company can then engage in a series of transactions with other shell companies or legitimate businesses, spreading the money through various jurisdictions, currencies, and bank accounts. This process, known as layering, creates a complex web of transactions that are extremely difficult for law enforcement to trace. Once the funds have been sufficiently laundered, they can be reintegrated into the legitimate economy through the integration stage. At this point, the money is clean and can be used without raising suspicion, often in high-profile investments such as real estate, art, or business acquisitions. The appeal of offshore jurisdictions for money launderers lies in their financial secrecy laws. Countries like the British Virgin Islands, Panama, and the Cayman Islands are known for their lax corporate governance standards, low taxes, and, most importantly, their ability to shield the identities of company owners. In these countries, a shell company can be established with minimal effort, often without the need for the true owners to reveal themselves. Instead, nominee directors and shareholders are appointed, further obscuring the company's true purpose and ownership. This secrecy is why shell companies are so effective in the money laundering process. In the infamous Russian laundromat scandal, more than 21 shell companies were used to launder over $20 billion out of Russia between 2010 and 2014. The scheme funneled illicit money through Moldova and Latvia, eventually moving it into shell companies in the UK and Cyprus. These companies engaged in fake trade transactions with each other, allowing the money to flow freely through legitimate banking systems, making it nearly impossible to trace back to its criminal origins. Shell companies also pose a significant challenge to financial institutions, which are often unknowingly used as conduits for laundering money. Despite stringent anti-money laundering (AML) regulations, banks sometimes fail to perform adequate due diligence on shell companies, allowing criminals to open accounts and transfer funds. In some cases, banks have even been complicit in these schemes. A striking example is the Danske Bank scandal, one of the largest money laundering cases in history. Between 2007 and 2015, the Estonian branch of Denmark's largest bank processed an astonishing $230 billion in suspicious transactions, much of which involved shell companies from Russia and other former Soviet states. These companies funneled dirty money through the bank, often without triggering the necessary AML protocols. The scandal rocked the European financial system and highlighted how even large, reputable banks can become enablers of money laundering if they fail to adequately scrutinize their clients. The ripple effects of money laundering through shell companies extend far beyond the criminal underworld. The global economy suffers from the destabilizing impact of these illicit flows, as vast sums of money are siphoned out of developing countries and funneled into offshore accounts, robbing nations of much-needed tax revenue. The World Bank estimates that money laundering costs developing countries around $1 trillion annually in lost revenue. This capital flight prevents these nations from investing in essential public services, such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure, exacerbating poverty and inequality. Moreover, shell companies play a significant role in inflating real estate prices in major global cities like London and New York. Wealthy individuals and criminals alike often use shell companies to purchase high-value properties, driving up prices and making it increasingly difficult for ordinary citizens to afford housing. In recent years, the rise of digital currencies and blockchain technology has opened new avenues for money launderers. Cryptocurrencies, with their decentralized nature and pseudonymous transactions, offer a new way to obscure the origins of illicit funds. Criminals are increasingly using virtual shell companies, digital entities with no physical presence, to launder money through cryptocurrency exchanges. These virtual companies are harder to track and operate in jurisdictions where regulation is either non-existent or slow to catch up with technological advancements. However, governments and international bodies like the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, are beginning to crack down on these practices by introducing stricter regulations on cryptocurrency exchanges and requiring enhanced due diligence for digital transactions. Despite the introduction of various anti-money laundering measures globally, enforcement remains a significant challenge. In many cases, governments lack the resources or political will to enforce the regulations that could curtail money laundering through shell companies. Corrupt officials often benefit from these activities, further complicating efforts to combat them. However, there have been some successes. After the Panama Papers leak, several governments initiated investigations that led to the recovery of millions of dollars in unpaid taxes and fines. But these victories are small compared to the scale of the problem. For every shell company uncovered, many more remain hidden, continuing to facilitate the flow of dirty money around the world. The future of money laundering is evolving, and so too must the efforts to combat it. As technology advances and new methods of laundering money emerge, law enforcement agencies must stay ahead of the game. This requires international cooperation, stronger regulations, and the development of new technologies that can track and trace illicit financial flows more effectively. Ultimately, the battle against money laundering and shell companies is one that affects us all. By allowing criminals to launder money unchecked, we enable corruption, weaken economies, and erode trust in financial institutions. It is time to bring these shadowy networks into the light, and hold accountable those who profit from the misery of others.